Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's discussion on the Electromagnetic Transient Modeling Requirements. My name is Isabella Nicosia, representing ISO Stakeholder Affairs, and I'll be facilitating the web conference today. I'm also joined on the line by a few other ISO representatives, Riddy Ray, Songji Zhu, Lindsay Thomas, as well as Miquan Hong from SCE. The presentation for today's call is available on the Miscellaneous Stakeholders Meeting webpage of the California ISO website. Today's call is being recorded, and the recording is for informational and convenience purposes only, and any related transcriptions should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. We will be taking questions throughout the call today, and if you have a question, you can enter the queue by pressing #2 on your telephone keypad. I'd just like to remind everyone to please start by introducing yourself before asking your question. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Songji, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Isabella. Good morning, everyone. This is Songji Zhu from California ISO. So this call is the ISO education outreach for the purpose of the generator model request under the ISO transmission planning process, BTM. So today, the ISO team and our participating transmission owner team, we're all here to walk you through the recently updated EMT model requirement and answer any questions you may have. First, I'll provide an overview of the process and the requirements. Then Miquan Hong from SCE will discuss the details of the requirement. So first, why do we require EMT model from the generator owners? So, today's grid, it has changed from 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Now we have more HVDC fast devices, and more importantly, we have a large amount of inverter-based generating resources. Those are all based on inverter with a fast control, fast response to any event on the grid. So the traditional, the positive sequence model is no longer sufficient to cover all the study needs we have to maintain the system reliability. And here we list something as some applicable studies that the EMT could be helpful, while the traditional positive sequence may not be sufficient. So EMT model can represent the power system at all frequencies, as well as individual phase quantities. Also, EMT model it captures subtransient that happens in a very short time frame. Examples of EMT application include unbalanced fault analysis, high frequency transient analysis, and SSO analysis, subsynchronous oscillation analysis, and then for more relevant for the inverter-based resources, it can be used to perform fast control interaction studies. Next slide, please. The ISO has updated the EMT model submission criteria recently, not very recent, but after we launched the BTM process in 2018. So the new the criteria, it include, we require EMT model for all generating resources if they meet all the 3 conditions set in here, A, B, and C. So first, the facility is connecting to 60 kV or higher. Then the second, the individual resource with nameplate capacity greater than 10 MVA, or aggregate resource with a nameplate capacity greater than 20 MVA. And the last criteria is if it is a synchronous generator, will require EMT model if the generator is electrically close to a series compensated line, transmission line. Or any asynchronous generator will be required if they need A and B as well. So asynchronous generators include all the inverter-based resources, also include like type 1 or type 2 wind turbines. Those are induction machines. We realized the difficulty for those legacy type 1 and type 2 wind turbines to obtain EMT model. Also, all those type 1 and type 2 wind turbines are being phased out. They are being repowered with the new technology. So the type 1 and the type 2 wind turbines are exempt from the EMT model requirement. Next slide. So we have been requesting EMT models since 2018, but at that time, both asynchronous generators and synchronous generators are required to provide EMT model only if they are close to series compensated line. Now the new requirement is all the asynchronous generators need to provide EMT. We have received about 30 models, EMT models so far. And by reviewing those models, we have learned and we have updated the model submission requirement. Then due to this criteria change after 2018, we have to catch up on the earlier submissions during the phases 1 to 4. So those in phase 1 to 4, the inverter-based or asynchronous generators that are not close to series compensated line are also required to provide EMT model. And we have provided a submission schedule to each of the generator. And that will happen in 2021. And the future one, phase 5 through 11, if EMT model is required, that we also have provided the submission deadline. Next page. So the updated requirement is posted on the ISO website, and then I'll hand over to Min-Wan to discuss the EMT model requirements in more details.
Thank you, Sanju. Good morning, everyone. This is Min-Wan Hong from Southern California Edison, and I'll be presenting on EMT modeling requirements in general. So the remainder of this presentation will highlight certain EMT model requirements. For complete ISO EMT modeling requirements, please refer to the link below. All EMT model submissions must comply with the ISO EMT modeling requirements document. Should there be discrepancies between this presentation and ISO's EMT modeling requirements document, ISO's EMT modeling document will prevail. Next slide, please. So next we'll be going over EMT modeling requirements for synchronous and induction generators. The EMT modeling details that are discussed in the next slide should be met for synchronous and induction generators, which include combustion turbine generators, steam turbine generators, hydro generators, and type 1 and 2 wind turbines. Although these are not required to, type 1 and type 2 are not required to submit EMT models. Next slide, please. So all synchronous and induction generator models should include a multi-mass torsional shaft interface model. The approximate representation of one stiff shaft used in transient stability modeling is not allowed. The image below shows a screenshot of the PSCAD multi-mass model, and this model should include the inertia constants, the shaft spring constants, torque share between different masses, and damping. The synchronous and induction generator model should also include representation of the machine saturation or magnetizing curve and the transformer magnetizing curves. Next slide, please. All synchronous and induction generator models should also represent the following components as user-written PSCAD models or as standard PSCAD block models with the model type and data specified. These are the applicable components are the excitation system, governor, and power system stabilizer. The PSCAD model should also include model parameters which reflect the actual installed settings in the field and not manufacturer default parameters. The generator grounding system should also be represented, as well as all installed protection in detail for both balanced and unbalanced fault conditions. Finally, dynamic reactive devices should be represented, including automatically controlled capacitor and reactor banks if applicable. Next slide, please. The next few slides will cover EMT modeling requirements for inverter-based generators. The requirements will be applied to inverter-based generators such as solar photovoltaic, battery energy storage systems, and type 3 and 4 wind turbines. Next slide, please. PSCAD models of inverter-based generators should include the full detailed inner control loops of the power electronics. This representation should include all fast inner controls as implemented in installed equipment. All plant-level controllers should also be represented, which include external voltage controllers, plant-level controllers, customized phase-lock looped PLL systems, ride-through controllers, and sub-synchronous control interaction damping controllers. If multiple plants are controlled by a common controller, then this functionality should be represented in PSCAD. Additionally, the model parameters should reflect the actual installed settings in the field and not manufacturer default parameters. Next slide, please. Similar to synchronous generators, the inverter-based generator models should represent all installed protection in detail for both balanced and unbalanced fault conditions. All dynamic reactive devices, including automatically controlled capacitor and reactive banks, should be modeled if applicable, and the transformer magnetizing curve should be represented. Finally, inverter-based generator models should be configured to match expected site-specific equipment settings. Any user-tunable parameters or options should be set in the model to match the equipment at the specific site being evaluated as far as they are known. For example, if the facility is in power factor control mode, it should be represented as such. All right, next slide. Next, we'll cover model usability features. These requirements should be met for all EMT models regardless of generation type. All EMT models should be capable of running at time steps anywhere in the range from 10 microseconds to 20 microseconds. They should also be capable of initializing themselves. Models should initialize and ramp to full output without external input from the user. The model should also allow the active power capability of the model to be scaled if using the same inverter, collector, and/or pad mount transformer models. The image below shows a screenshot of an inverter which is being scaled using a pad mount transformer component. So it's being scaled by 8. We also want the EMT models to have the ability to dispatch its output values to less than nameplate. This is different from scaling the pad mount transformer because we want to be able to adjust the P output of the generator model without adjusting the scaling of the pad mount transformer. Typically, the way that we've seen this being done is that there is a PGen, an adjustable PGen in the PSCAD model, which is taken by the power plant controller and used to adjust the inverters to provide coordinated control. Next slide, please. Additionally, all EMT models should allow the protection models to be disabled for debugging purposes. They should also have pertinent control and hardware options accessible to the user. These include adjustable protection thresholds, real power recovery ramp rates, or sub-synchronous control interaction damping controllers. The screenshot below shows a PSCAD model with adjustable protection thresholds. Next slide, please. All EMT models should also include documentation and a sample implementation test case. Test case models should be configured according to the site-specific real equipment configuration up to the point of interconnection. They should also accept external reference values. This includes real and reactive power reference values for Q control modes or voltage reference values for V control modes. The screenshot below shows an example of some of the modes that are available and that should be initialized when submitted to the ISO and PTOs with the site-specific configuration. For example, the AVR mode should be set to what the plant typically operates at, and similarly, the power factor setting should also be set as the same. Next slide. Next, we'll go over model efficiency features. All EMT models should comply with these requirements regardless of generation type. EMT models should be compiled using Intel Fortran compiler version 12 and higher. the ISO and the PTOs will no longer accept PSCAD models compiled using G-Fortran. Additionally, EMT models should be compatible with PSCAD version 4.5.3 or higher, but the model should not be dependent on a specific PSCAD version to run. All EMT models should initialize as quickly as possible, for example, less than 5 seconds, to user-supplied terminal conditions, and support multiple instances of its own definition in the same simulation case. All EMT models should also support the PSCAD time snapshot and multiple run features, and allow replication in different PSCAD cases or libraries through the copy or copy transfer features. Next slide. I will turn this over to Sanju to finish up.
Yeah, so here we have all the contact information for the ISO and as well as for the PTOs. So if you have any comments, inquiries, please send your comments or questions to the ISO grid modeling data mailbox. And please follow this subject line. Also, copy your interconnecting PTO in the email to supply ISO. So you will select one of those email address set up for the PTO for the question you have. That's it, and now we'll open to questions.
As a reminder, you can enter the question queue by pressing #2 on your telephone keypad. Ethan, will you let us know if anybody enters the queue?
Of course, we do have one question in the queue now. I'll go ahead and put them through. Caller, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hello, this is Dario Shomamadi with GridBright and CalVia. I had a question regarding a statement which was made regarding not requiring legacy wind farms with type 1, type 2 wind turbines to supply PSCAD or EMT models. Could you repeat that and confirm my understanding?
Yes, so type 1 and type 2 wind turbines, they are not required to provide EMT models.
Okay, so they're not required to do that. Okay.
Yeah, there's exempt for them.
Okay, and I'm assuming the inverter-based systems don't have to do this either, right? Because I noticed you are only focusing on synchronous and induction generators.
No, all the inverter-based generators is interconnecting to 60 kV and above, and the size is greater than 10 MV, they must provide EMT model.
Okay. Now, these EMT models are going to be used with PSCAD or with the EMTP application. Which model will be using for testing?
Right now, we are using PSCAD.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, we have one other caller in the queue. I'll go ahead and put them through. Caller, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yes, this is Asim Bhatia, and I'm calling from California Department of Water Resources. So this is pretty new to me. Is this information somehow seated in the BPM package, or it's a total different request you guys are making?
This requirement is a part of the TPP BPM Section 10. And the further clarification on how to submit the EMT model, that is a separate document posted as a supporting document on the ISO website.
Okay, so it is. So I'm understanding that there's a separate procedure, but this information is also being requested as part of the BPM package.
It is BPM package which just provide additional support, the technical document, especially for EMT, because most of people are not familiar with EMT model.
Okay, and are you guys planning on requesting? Are you guys planning on requesting eGenerator to do this, or this meeting basically is all you're going to have, and you're expecting all generators to kind of do their due diligence, or are you going to reach out to us and let us know?
Yeah, we have reached to the generators. If the generators is required to provide EMT models, we have provide them with the submission deadline.
Okay, because as far as CDWR, we have many departments, and it may have just I don't know. I haven't seen any requests. But I'll go ahead and send an email to see if any sort of a request was sent to our department. So, okay, that's all.
This is really Asim. Probably one point of contact at CDWR might be Raji Prasad. We have worked with him on some of these submissions, so at least he should be in the loop of receiving any requests for CDWR facilities.
Okay, I will. Okay, I'll get in touch with him, and then we'll go from there. Thank you. That's all I have.
Alrighty, at this time there are no further questions in the queue. Oh, one just popped in. Would you like to go ahead?
Sure, go ahead.
Caller, you are now unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is David Branchcombe with Sierra Pacific Industries. I received an email notice of this meeting, but got no indication of when this additional effort that we are for some reason required to do on our legacy generator is due to the ISO. And this will require a substantial amount of work because these are not new machines that we have. We're operating biomass cogeneration facilities that have been in place for some cases 20 or 30 years. So it'll take a while to pull this together. When do you expect us to come up with this new and improved requirement?
So David, this is really, we sent, so it depends on where, in which phase your facilities were. So for each facility, we send them specific deadlines, either as part of the initial request, if you were phase 5 and after. But if you are between phases 1 and 4, we sent additional letters this year asking for the data submission to be made later in 2021. So that should have already been sent to any units at Sierra Pacific that are required to submit EMT models. But if there is any confusion or question as to what are the specific deadlines for the units, just send us an email with the name and the resource ID, and we can confirm that for you again.
Okay, I will. I'll simply reply to the email I got from you noticing this meeting. But there's no. Okay. I mean, we've been through this for some of our a bunch of new stuff recently as part of this for some generators, and now we've got yet more to do, it appears. I mean, I don't understand. This whole problem is being caused by the proliferation of solar on the system, and yet, we folks that combust things get demonized all the time as, killing the planet, yet you turn to us when the lights don't come on. And now we have to go do additional modeling and incur additional costs because you've got an overabundance of solar generation on the system. How does that work? I don't understand that. Why do we have to bear the burden of that?
There is no additional requirement for the synchronous generator. For synchronous generator has been decades that the SSR could be a concern, so we require EMT model for synchronous generators if it is close to a serious compensated line. Not every synchronous generator is required to provide EMT model, only if it is close enough to a serious compensated line and could be a concern for subsynchronous resonance. So this requirement has always been there. We didn't change this part. What we have added is for the asynchronous generator, for inverter-based generators, we extend the requirement to not just close to a serious compensating line.
I'm not sure I know what you just said.
we are talking about your generators that have been there 20, 30 years. It's a synchronous generator. We're not adding any requirements. So
then we don't have anything else to do? I mean, I don't understand that we do.
David, I think I mean, if we want to talk about a specific generator, then, if you can send us the name and the unit, then, we can definitely discuss with you. That'll just be easier because we'll have to look at the specific generator and the requirements we sent to you. But overall, as Sanju mentioned, for the synchronous units, it was, for certain synchronous units, it was a requirement from day one back in 2018. So that should have been part of the initial request. That is not incremental for you. The incremental requirement was only for the asynchronous units. But you probably received this email because the initial request for your generator in question had that requirement marked. But if there's any question about that, we can definitely discuss that with you if you send us.
Okay, appreciate that. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah.
Sorry, this is Siwan from SCE. If I could provide some technical clarification to support Sanju. For synchronous generators, they're only required to submit PSCAD models if they're located electrically close to series compensated lines, because in cases where these synchronous generators become radial from a series compensated line, there's a potential for subsynchronous interaction at frequencies below 60 hertz that can cause damage to the synchronous generator and actually cause damage to the shaft of the generator. And this is a known problem that has been well studied and occurred in Arizona. So this is nothing new. It's not related to IBRs. It's purely a mechanical problem that can occur near series compensated lines.
Okay. Well, I'll send the email back to Reedy and see if I can get some clarification on why the unit that he's referred to in his email is required to do this and what the deadlines and so forth are. It's just not clear to me. Thank you.
All right, we do have another question in the queue. I'll go ahead and put them through. You are now unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Good morning. This is Sean LaFleur, Pacific Gas and Electric. I'm specifically supporting Diablo Canyon nuclear power plants. I think my questions have been answered. I just want to get more clarification. We have two unit nuclear plants that feed the 500 kV, and I'm assuming we did get a request to do this modeling. I'm assuming it's because we are so close and we directly feed the 500 kV distribution system. Is that correct?
Hi, this is Lindsay Thomas. Yes.
And then a follow-up question to David. We've been operating for an extremely long time, and we are a huge source of grid stability in voltage and frequencies. So I'd like to get maybe if somebody could post that Arizona study. I'm unfamiliar with what happened in Arizona. Maybe we can get that information and we can study what happened there and understand the reason for having to do this, because it's a very intensive, from what we can tell, study, and it's going to take us quite a bit of time because our systems are extremely complicated at a nuclear power plant. Thank you.
Alrighty, at this time we have no further questions in the queue. Oh, we do have another that just popped up. Would you like me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Caller, you are now unmuted. Please go ahead.
This is Rich Sowers with Terragen, and we have been backfitting a lot of these EMT requests and are doing well. My question is this. We have a lot of projects in the NRI process, which require the PSCAD, EPC model, and the DYD. Are you contemplating at some point to add this to the upfront requirements of the NRI process?
So this is really, sorry, Sanjay, do you want to take this?
No, I'm asking you to.
Okay. So to your point, there really hasn't been any contemplation internally to add this to the NRI process because I think we're still working out how these EMT model requirements apply to new to resources that are still going through the interconnection process. So far, we have been requesting it from all the synchronous facilities after they go operational, and providing them some time to be able to develop those models once they have interconnected and have gone commercial. So, that's where we are today.
Okay, you've answered my question, but bottom line is we should know when we're going to have to produce these models, which is
yes,
for every project we have that falls under the criteria. Okay.
Yes, and so we do send separate requests. Once you come online, we do send you a data package with the spreadsheet that lists out the specific requirements. And if you're required to provide an EMT model, if you're in a synchronous facility falling in that category, then it will be identified in there.
Okay, thank you. I'm very familiar with those. Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, at this time, we have no further questions in the question queue.
Okay, we do have, looks like 2 questions in the chat, so I'll read off the first one. Says, if EMT models were submitted and accepted last year or earlier this year, does this mean they need to be resubmitted?
No, if you have already submitted EMT model through this process, now we should be reviewing those models. And if there are problems with the model, we will tell you, and you may have to update. But if the model is valid, it's okay, then you don't need to resubmit anything.
Thanks, Songji. The second question is, can the panel elaborate on what should be provided for documentation of the EMT model and if that documentation can reside in the model in the form of a note?
Do you want to take this one?
That's right. So typically what's included or necessary in the EMT modeling documentation is any configuration that needs to be performed in order to run the PSCAD model, what compiler was used, what library files were packaged with the model, and some details about the model itself and what's included. This documentation can be provided in the form of a note, but typically we prefer PDFs since it's less likely that those files will be modified or on accident.
Are there any other questions in the queue?
There are no hands raised in the question queue at this time.
Okay. Riddhi or Songji or Maikwan, did you have anything to add before we conclude today's call?
No, I don't have anything.
Yeah, this really, the only thing I would add for all the participants is that we have found out from time to time that when generators need to provide these EMT models, the OEMs, they do get models from their OEMs, and that has required the ISO signing non-disclosure agreements with the OEMs or getting access to the models, and same goes for the PTOs. So if you are in that situation, then please reach out to us well in advance. Those negotiations do take a little time. So we definitely appreciate you giving us as much of a heads up as possible if that is required.
This is me, nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there are no further questions, I think we can conclude today's call. Again, the recording will be posted to the Miscellaneous Stakeholders Meeting webpage of the California ISO website in the next couple of days. But thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
That concludes our conference. Thank you for using AT&T Event Conferencing Enhanced. You may now disconnect.